So now we're going to look at how to construct side-by-side box plots and how we can compare both five-number summaries and box plots when we have two different data sets. So in this example, a student wanted to know whether Centrum vitamins dissolve faster than the corresponding generic brand. The student used vinegar as a proxy for stomach acid and measured the time in minutes it took for a vitamin to completely dissolve. The results are shown next. So we have two different data sets. On the left-hand side, these are the results for Centrum, and these are the results for the generic brand. So in each case, we have 30 measurements, and so let's look at the comparison. So I'm going to take this away and actually bring over my TI, and let's see, I'm going to go back to my data. So the first thing I would want to do is enter both data sets. So I can do that using the edit menu. I've actually done that in my, let's see, my first list, these have the values for Centrum. The second list, these are the times for the generic brand. So in list one is Centrum, list two is for the generic brand. So I want to get a five-number summary for both of these data sets. So I'll go to my stat menu. This time I'm going to use the calculations. I'll do this one at a time. So first I'll look at list one. So this is the Centrum data. And I'll scroll down to see the five-number summary. And I'm going to just copy this down. So the minimum is 2.15. Q1 is 2.6. The median is 3.02. Q3 is 3.53, and the max is 4.33. So this is the five-number summary for Centrum. And for the generic, we'll do this again. I'll go back to the stat menu, calculations, the first option, and this time I want to choose list two, and I'll scroll down, and the five-number summary here is 4.97, 5.57, 6.315, 6.73, and 7.58. So now let's look at the box plots. So I'm going to go to my stat plot menu, and I want to turn on plot 1 and plot 2. Plot 1 will be for L1, plot 2 will be for L2. So I'll make sure that this is turned on, that I've selected the box plot with outliers, that I'm telling the calculator I want to use list 1, and should be good to go. Let's go back to, or over to plot 2, and I want to turn it on with the same selections except that this is list 2, and let me make sure that I have plot 3 off. Plot 3 off. So now I can, to look at it, I hit my zoom menu and option 9, and the first box plot here is for the Centrum, and the second box plot is for the generic brand. Now notice we can see immediately that the times for the generic brand to dissolve are much higher than, I mean, all of the times from every value in the sample is higher than any value for the times for the Centrum vitamin. So that's obvious right off the bat. Not only is the median higher, all the data values are higher. But so that's a first and obvious conclusion. Now, what about though the spread for the Centrum compared to the spread? Now, notice that the ranges, so that would be the distance from the minimum to the maximum. That's maybe a little bit greater in the generic brand, but I'd say they're similar ranges. What about the interquartile range? So that would be the difference between Q1 and Q3 in both of these. It looks like the interquartile range is a little bit wider for the generic brand. So there may be a little bit more variety in the times for dissolving the generic brand. as far as a skew goes, first of all, there are no outliers in either of these. And uh, as far as the whiskers, the right hand whisker for the centrum is a little bit longer. That's actually in both cases. I don't know that it's long enough that I would call it a skew. Let's actually go back to just the 5-number summary and look at some of the differences here. So the spread in the first quarter here is 0.45, and the spread in the next quarter is 0.42, and then this is 0.51, and from 53 to 33, that would be 8, so 0.8. So here, this difference of 0.80 is a little bit bigger than either of these. There's a little bit more spread in that top quarter. What about for in the generic brand? In the first quarter, there's a spread of 0.60. Let's see if I take, I'll be lazy here and use my calculator on this one. 6.315 minus 5.57. This has a spread of 0.745, and 6.73 minus 6.315. I'm going to clear that off. 6.73 minus 6.315. So it's 0.415. And then lastly, I take 7.58 and subtract 6.73, and this is 0.85. So again, in the top quarter, there's maybe a slightly greater spread, but it's not all that dissimilar from these others. So maybe there's a slight right skew here in the Centrum brand. So just as a closing remarks, I want to go back and show you the measures of center and spread in the 5-number summary again. So I'll go back to my stat menu, calculations, one variable statistics, and I want to do list 1 first, because I wanted to show you also the sample mean and the sample standard deviation. So this will be for Centrum. The sample mean was 3. Let's round to 2 decimal places since our other measurements are. So this would be 0.06, and the sample standard deviation is 0.64. For the generic brand, that's in list 2, the mean is 6.27, and the standard deviation is 0.75. So remember that if our data is skewed, we expect the mean to be different from our mean. So notice actually in the first data set, the mean is a little bit more. So this actually confirms that there might be a slight right skew here. In the generic brand, the mean is actually a little bit lower. And so there's certainly wouldn't be, this is not evidence that there's a right skew. In fact, it would be evidence that there was a left skew. But I'm not seeing that in the differences here or in the box plot. So those numbers are, well, I really think that in either case, so this was only off, there was a difference of plus 0.04 between these two values. Between 0.627 and 6.315 minus 6.27, this is actually difference by 0.045. So there's actually a little bit more difference here than there is here. So really, I think it's a little bit subjective here. Let's go back to the to our plots. So I'm going to go to the zoom and option 9 again. And let's look to see here. Uh, yeah, based on the box plots, it doesn't seem like there's an elongated tail really in either of these. I think I'm going to reverse my decision here. And instead of saying a slight right skew, I'm just going to say that this is roughly symmetric. And I would say that about both of these. Now that I've looked at all of the information that's available to me. So your determinations about skews and symmetry can be somewhat subjective. You kind of have to consider what you're seeing visually, what you're seeing in the differences in the numbers in the 5-number summary. You can compare mean to median, but don't worry too much if I have the opinion that it's roughly symmetric and you say that there's a slight skew, um, that would be splitting hairs. Now, if you said that there was a strong right skew and I said that there was a strong left skew, that would be a different story. All right, so I hope this is helpful in understanding the 5-number summary and the uh, how to compare box plots and 5-number summaries, and then with a little bit of review about our other measures of the center.